any case, okay, let's talk about Kevin Spacey for just a second, because this is an amazing story. So over the weekend, these allegations come out from BuzzFeed that an actor named Anthony Rapp, who was on Broadway at the time, was 14 years old. This is 31 years ago, I guess. And he was 14 years old. And Kevin Spacey, who has won 2 Oscars, was apparently at a party with this kid, a 14-year-old kid, and picked him up like Rhett Butler with Scarlett O'Hara, picked him up, put him on a bed, and then attempted to climb on top of him. A 14-year-old kid. So he's attempting to sexually assault a 14-year-old kid. So Kevin Spacey comes out, and here is his statement. And when I say comes out, I mean like in a couple of ways. So he comes out, and here is his statement, Kevin Spacey. He says, quote, "I have a lot of respect and admiration for Anthony Rapp as an actor. I'm beyond horrified to hear his story. I honestly do not remember the encounter. It would have been over 30 years ago. But if I did behave then as he describes, I owe him the sincerest apology for what would have been deeply inappropriate drunken behavior, and I am sorry for the feelings he describes having carried with him all these years. And this story has encouraged me to address other things about my life. I know there are stories out there about me and that some have been fueled by the fact I have been so protective of my privacy. As those closest to me know, in my life I have had relationships with both men and women. I have loved and had romantic encounters with men throughout my life, and I choose now to live as a gay man. I want to deal with this honestly and openly, and that starts with examining my own behavior." So this is what we call the Jim McGreevey defense. I don't know if you remember all the way back to 2004. Okay, for those who are younger in our audience. In 2004, there was a New Jersey governor. His name was Jim McGreevey. Jim McGreevey was a Democrat. And his I guess, chief of staff or security chief accused Jim McGreevey of sexually harassing him. And Jim McGreevey was married. He had a kid, right? He had been married twice, and he actually had 2 kids. And Jim McGreevey released a long, weepy statement about how he was a gay man. I, Jim McGreevey, I am a gay man. And the media said, oh, what a hero. Oh, what a good guy. You know, it doesn't matter that he cheated on his wife with men. It doesn't matter that he was sexually harassing a guy. The important thing is that he was gay. He was gay. He played the gay card, right? In much the same way that the media have totally overlooked, the traffic accident that killed somebody that Caitlyn Jenner was involved in because Caitlyn Jenner is a hero, because Caitlyn Jenner is transgender. This is the routine that we do now in America, is that if you are involved in an alleged crime, if you come out as gay, or if you show your proper lefty bona fides, then we sort of ignore it, right? The only reason that that's why Harvey Weinstein, his initial response to the sexual assault, the rape charges that were being made about him was, I'm going to target the NRA. He was hoping to buy off the left media. So the question that I had last night reading this was this going to work? Because there are a couple problems for Kevin Spacey here. One is, everyone's known that he's gay for at least 20 years. I mean, I remember growing up, there were open jokes in Hollywood about Kevin Spacey being gay. In fact, there were open jokes about Kevin Spacey molesting children, right? Family Guy famously made fun of Kevin Spacey like 10 years ago when in a scene in which Stewie, right, the baby, is running naked through a mall and shouting, "I just escaped from Kevin Spacey's basement."
I'll do it, fine. Help! I've escaped from Kevin Spacey's basement!
So these allegations have been made about Kevin Spacey for years and years and years behind closed doors. That's problem number 1 for Kevin Spacey. Problem number 2 is that the gay community has tried very, very hard to separate off the allegations that homosexuality is associated with pedophilia. And they spent years trying to say homosexuality is not pedophilia, pedophilia is unacceptable, and molestation of children is unacceptable, and trying to suggest that being gay is associated with pedophilia is a form of homophobia, right? This is the claim that the left has made for years and that the LGBT community has made for years. This pretty much undermines that case, at least from Spacey's point of view, right? Because the shorter defense here is, sure, I may have tried to molest a 14-year-old boy, but I'm gay. That is not a good defense. That is not a good line of defense, either morally or for the gay community, which is attempting to say it is not appropriate to do this, right? The gay community was angry when Milo Yiannopoulos suggested that it was fine that he was molested as a child by a priest. And when all of this stuff comes out in the gay community, people tend to say, well, those are isolated incidents. That's not indicative of a trend. Well, this does not help that particular case, right? So Kevin Spacey undermining the legitimacy of the homosexual community that is not involved in pedophilia by basically linking what he did to Anthony Rapp with being gay, right? The main part of the Anthony Rapp story that people found disturbing was not the gay stuff. It was the fact that Kevin Spacey was attempting to molest a child, right? I mean, 14 years old is a child. It's 1 year past your bar mitzvah. I mean, really, it's amazing stuff. So the question is, how did the media respond? So I asked this last night. Would the media buy into the idea that Kevin Spacey was a hero and let him off easy because he now says he's gay? So this is the intersectional politics of the left. If you are gay, or you are black, or you are Hispanic, or you are a woman, if you make the claim that whatever you did wrong is based on your victimization as a member of that community, Can you get away with it? This is always the intersectional question. And so I asked this last night, and a bunch of people on the left said, no way he gets away with this. No way. The media won't fall for this. The media won't say that the headline is that he's gay. The media will say the headline is that he's basically quasi-acknowledging he may have tried to rape a 14-year-old. Here's the headline from Reuters. Quote, actor Kevin Spacey declares he lives life as a gay man. If I read you that statement, would that be your headline? Would your headline be, I was drunk, Kevin Spacey quasi-admits to drunkenly attempting to have sex with a 14-year-old boy? Or would the headline be, Kevin Spacey says he lives life as a gay man? I mean, is that a cover-up of epic media proportions or what? Here's the headline from ABC News. I choose to live as a gay man. Kevin Spacey comes out in emotional tweet. Emotional tweet, for God's sake. He came out because a guy accused him of trying to molest him when he was 14 years old. This is insanity. Now, there are many media outlets that are reporting both facts, right? They're saying things like, after accusations of sexual molestation, Spacey comes out as gay, right? But again, if the punchline is Spacey comes out as gay, you're missing the punchline. The punchline is Spacey trying to fob off molesting a 14-year-old by saying he was drunk at the time. I don't remember everybody being, quite so accepting of Roman Polanski raping a 13-year-old girl. Right? Maybe he should have just raped a 13-year-old boy and then said that he was drunk at the time and gay. I mean, this is insanity. This is fully insanity. And again, this is not good for the LGBT community. For people who are saying, well, we have to be protective of his rights as a gay man. No, you have to be protective of the rights of children, and gay people understand this. I mean, that's been the response that I've seen from the LGBT folks that I know online. Right? The gay people I'm seeing online are saying, this is insane. How could Kevin Spacey say such a thing? How could Kevin Spacey undercut our entire case like this? The media cheering Spacey is just another indicator that the media are really disgusting, and their leftism overcomes even their most basic sort of moral stances. Okay, time for some things I like. We'll start from Paul Manafort. We'll start with Paul Manafort because this was the expectation last week. So as you recall, on Friday, it was announced that the special counsel was going to drop indictments on Monday. I always love when they leave cliffhangers at the end of a season. It's really exciting that way. So they left a cliffhanger on Friday. Who would be indicted? And everybody sort of assumed it'll be Manafort, right? It's got to be Manafort because Manafort has been known to be dirty for years and years and years. He was very, very tied in with the Republican establishment. He really was. He was close to the Bushes. He was close to the Republican National Committee. He was very close to a lot of people in Republican halls of power. I know because I had heard of him sort of in those circles. But Manafort had also been widely known since really 2012 to sort of be a dirty character who was in with the Ukrainian government, who's basically doing lobbying work allegedly on behalf of the Ukrainian government, which is a Russian front puppet state, basically run by a guy named Viktor Yanukovych. So the allegations in the indictment, the left was hoping that the indictment would say Paul Manafort traded money, the Russians paid him in order so that he would set up collusion between the Trump campaign and Russia. This is what the Democrats and the media wanted. They wanted Paul Manafort to be the go-between for the supposed Russian collusion that would show that Hillary Clinton actually won the election, except for those scheming, evil Russians. Okay, that's not what the indictment says. So the indictment is 12 counts, and basically the entire thing is about how Paul Manafort is a corrupt creep who was taking money from this Ukrainian party that was basically a front group for Russia and then laundering it. That's pretty much the entire thing. There's nothing, Trump is not mentioned once in the indictment. The Trump campaign is not mentioned one time in the indictment. Virtually all of the bad acts happened in 2014 and before. In 2014 is when Yanukovych left office, so that cut off sort of the money train for Manafort. And then apparently he was still fibbing about it and doing some money laundering afterward. But most of the bad activity with regard to Russia, at least as the indictment says, stopped in 2014. So that's the good news for Trump. Nothing in the indictment suggests collusion between Trump and the Russian government. And that's exactly what the left wanted it to say. Here's the bad news for Trump. Manafort was a crappy pick. Everyone knew it at the time. When Manafort was picked, people were immediately saying, this guy is probably going to end up in jail. Bad move by President Trump. But it shows you the level of chaos that sort of predominated in the Trump campaign. In all likelihood, somebody just went to Trump and said, listen, none of the big campaign managers will work for you. Here's this guy who's super connected. He has good business connections. Paul Manafort, hire him. And so Trump went ahead and hired him. It's probably that simple. And that sort of chaos inside the Trump administration also, in my opinion, could easily explain the George Papadopoulos routine that we're going to talk about in just a little while. So to finish up with Manafort, basically the indictment alleges that Manafort and Richard Gates III, his right hand, worked as, quote, unregistered agents of the government of Ukraine, generated tens of millions of dollars in income as a result of the Ukraine work. They then laundered the money through scores of U.S. and foreign corporations, partnerships, and bank accounts. Manafort and Gates allegedly did not register as foreign agents, which they apparently were, and then Manafort used his hidden overseas wealth to enjoy a lavish lifestyle in the United States without paying taxes on income. So basically they're getting him for all the financial impropriety. between, in, or around 2008 and 2017, both dates being approximate and inclusive according to the indictment, Manafort and Gates devised and intended to devise and executed and attempted to execute a scheme and artifice to defraud, to obtain money and property by means of false and fraudulent pretenses, representations, and promises from the United States Bank and other financial institutions. Allegedly, Manafort wired millions through other companies for purposes of laundering. So if you saw Ozark, basically